Pretty much anytime I show one of my animals, there are a lot of people that ask where I got that specific animal, or people are just curious where I get animals in general and where they should. And I don't really feel like doing a reptile room tour, so instead I thought I would just go over all of my animals and only talk about where I got them. I'm going to try and go in order of when I got them. I have a list because that'd be embarrassing if I forgot some. So I'm holding Goby here, my corn snake, but I'm going to start in the order that I got the animals in the room, starting with Sunny, my ball python, who you probably know because he has so many videos focused on him. I got Sunny December 2013 when I was 13 years old. I had gone to my first ever reptile expo, which was Repticon in Winston-Salem, which we actually just vended there, so that was like weird to be in that same building that I bought my first animal in. I got him from a seller called Sky to See Pets. I don't know if they exist anymore. I think they do, but I've never seen them in an expo since. And when I got Sunny, he was in great condition. The vendors were great, but he did end up having mites. Now, I can't specifically blame Sky to See Pets for that. I don't know if he picked them up from the expo. Like, he didn't pick them up from my animals because he was my first true reptile. So I don't know if he picked it up from another seller at Repticon or if Sky to See Pets had infected animals. So either way, I jumped right into getting my first snake and had to deal with mites, which I didn't know what I was doing, and it took like 6 months to get him completely gone, but I did. And he was just a tiny dude. I think he was $60 if I remember right. He's a yellow belly ball python, and now he's turning 7 in a couple months. So that was my first dude, just straight from a captive bred breeder. After Sunny, I got Goldie, my first leopard gecko. He was marked as a 50% giant, 50% super giant, because we weren't sure if he was going to continue growing or not, which I think he's just a giant, and even then he's not that huge. He was from, I think, my third expo. I had gone to a second one, but I didn't buy anything. This one was Repticon in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I just wandered around until I found a gecko that looked cool. This one was from Big Daddy Geckos, who I think still exists, but I haven't seen them at Repticon either. I don't know why they're disappearing, or maybe I'm just not looking around well enough. But either way, this seller specifically specialized in giant and super giant leopard geckos, but like I said, we've had normals that aren't giants that are bigger than Goldie. Either way, he had a really nice, very small collection. It was just a kind of family-owned one of animals that he was selling and breeding. He was also probably the best customer support I've had with a buyer. I would message him on Facebook with really annoying questions, I'm sure. This was in 2014, so I was still getting into it. First time really working with lizards, but he never seemed to mind the questions, and that was really useful. So my second was also from a captive bred breeder. And then I'm pretty sure I got Goby. I'm just gonna assume it's Goby because I don't actually know. Goby was my first kind of quote rescue one. Now I made a video on this. I didn't really realize like what rescue. Like, now that we've kind of rescued animals, like, for real, Goby was sort of a rescue. I guess he was. So somebody on Facebook posted about him. Their kid had kind of surrendered the animal. Like, they had essentially taken a surrendered animal involuntarily by a family member, and they didn't know how to care for snakes. They didn't want to care for the snake, and they just happened to be in kind of a run-down house with no electricity. So this was one we walked into with the ridiculously strong smell of just smoke everywhere, very dark in there, kind of cold because there's just nothing happening. And there was this little corn snake chilling in this 40-gallon enclosure with some general supplies. His enclosure had never been cleaned in his life, so there was a lot of poop in there, and he was actually going to be released into the wild. So this is a reverse Okidi, and although corn snakes do live in North Carolina, they don't look like this, and they're not captive bred, obviously. Goby was captive bred in Bop, and then ended up in the hands of this other person. So obviously he probably would have been killed in like 2 seconds outside, but luckily we somehow connected, and then was able to pick him up. And he really didn't take any rehab. He took from day one. Corn snakes and many other snakes are just so ridiculously hardy, and they can just survive so much. Like, the things that they go through for years and years, and they're perfectly, like, not perfectly fine, but pretty close to fine. Goby's always had a bit of a wheeze that I've never heard in another corn snake. I presume that's from the smoke. That's just kind of permanently affected his lungs because there's nothing that can actually be cured. Like, it's not a respiratory infection or anything. It's just been like that for years. I think this was in 2015. I don't know when I got him, but it did not take long to get him up to weight. He was on live mice before, but corn snakes are so easy to get from live to frozen because they're just such a simple animal. And he's been growing super well and has had no problems since then. Next up, I went back to Repticon because I knew I wanted another lizard, preferably a blue-tongue skink. I had a few on my list, like a blue-tongue, a Eurymastix, a bearded dragon, but I ended up going with a blue-tongue skink, and this was also a Raleigh Repticon, and there were only 2 skinks in the entire building. There was one for $400, which as a 14-year-old, this was completely out of my budget, and then there was just a $40 blue-tongue skink. It didn't say what it was, it just said blue-tongue skink. This was a seller by the name of Fins and Fangs, which also had a store that very quickly ran out of business, luckily, because it was really bad. And what I did not know when I was ordering or purchasing is the fact that blue tongues can be wild caught. I just kind of assumed that they were all captive bred, but nope, Olive is wild caught. It makes sense for her only being $80, and she was missing some toes. A bunch of the animals they were selling just looked really bad. They were clearly imported and just randomly caught from wherever. So, whoops, I accidentally supported that trade, but I mean, I got over it because I can't do anything about it at this point. I bought her, and she's doing really well. Luckily, she never showed any issues from being wild caught, whether it's parasites or bacteria or trouble adapting. It was super easy, and I guess I accidentally stole her from Indonesia. They also have never been back to Repticon. That's the 3rd seller I bought from that was just there once and then just disappeared forever. I don't know why all the buyers I'm buying from are just poofing off the planet of the earth. Actually, I think I saw them on Facebook, and they just like sell weird exotic mammals now out of their house, so okay. I think it was then around this time that I got Shadow, my eastern rat snake, which although you can find captive bred rat snakes, which we're actually selling one right now, we've already sold a few, there's still one on emeraldscales.com, it's an albino. There are a ton of also wild caught easterns, which I did not actually buy mine from a seller. I found her in a construction zone. So at my old house, it was kind of just like a medium-sized neighborhood with tons of woods around it to explore. But I quickly realized that most of this was just being zoned out to be bulldozed and turned into more property, more houses, more real estate. So basically over the last couple years that I lived there, like a year or two, I just kept finding as many animals as physically possible and relocating them to protected areas or game lands and stuff. Not like state parks. It's actually illegal to bring animals in state parks along with taking them out. So I just tried to get them as far into woods that I legally could. And over this time, I don't remember exactly, it was probably a few hundred, like 200 or 300 animals that I ended up relocating, but I ended up keeping a couple of them because, like, why not? I wanted some educational animals because I was doing events and festivals, and I just always wanted a rat snake. So I ended up keeping Shadow. She was already like probably subadult when I got her, and somehow I've found a ton of rat snakes and they're always so docile, except for Shadow. I don't know why I kept that one of all of them. The most like irritating and the most defensive rat snake of them all. And although I'm sure I could have worked better to tame her down, I just have never really handled her a ton. So although I can handle her when she needs, I just avoid it because I don't feel like getting musked on every second. And it is really potent musk. I've been musked on by dozens of rat snakes too, and hers is one of the worst smelling. So that was just kind of unlucky, but Shadow's still a really cool animal. Apparently a lot of people's favorites that watch the videos. Which of course some people are gonna be like, well, you should have relocated 100% of the animals, not 99% of them. Which, oh well, what am I gonna do about it? I believe I'm completely out of order now, but like I said, who cares? Ember is my Kenyan sand boa, which was a species that I was not planning on at all. She was actually more of an impulse purchase. Which, it turns out people have different definitions of impulse purchasing. I think of an impulse buy as something that you simply were not planning on getting, and then immediately when you see it, you get it. Other people think an impulse buy is when you don't have the supplies or money, so you're not prepared, but I think you can be prepared and still impulse purchase an animal. So basically, I went to Repticon, wasn't planning on getting anything, but there were a lot of really cool species, and I had basically discovered sand boas there. Like, I had heard of them, but I had never really seen them in person. And there was a rescue CCSB reptile, which allegedly, I don't know how much of this is true, but apparently, I've heard they're not great. I don't know if that's true. I just see posts about them all the time. Also allegedly, also don't know if this is true, this is just something I saw on the internet, is that now when they go to expos, they use different names because CCSB has such a bad reputation. They don't want to use that name. Again, I can't confirm this. This is just a conspiracy, I guess. I don't know. Either way, that's not related. They had Ember. She was like 80 bucks. She's a completely normal sand boa, but they marked her much higher because they kind of guilted you into donating to their rescue or whatever. And I basically researched her on my phone for like 10 minutes and I was like, I'll buy her. So I would consider this an impulse purchase, but I already had all the supplies. I had experience with more difficult snakes than sand boas, so it felt perfectly fine doing it, and I never had any issues. So I want to do a video on impulse purchasing because I don't think it's always bad, or just like maybe all the controversial things like impulse buying, wild caught animals, stuff like that, because I don't think these are binary issues. But either way, I impulse bought Ember from Repticon from a rescue. Can't confirm if it's actually a rescue or not. Then there's Betty, my American toad. I had multiple American toads, but unfortunately I've talked about it before in the past. A handful of them ended up dying. I think I had 6 and then 5 of them died within like a few month period. This was a few years ago now. I think it was 2 or 3 years. I have some different theories on it. Still my best theory, like I mentioned, the festivals that I went to, I would bring animals, keep them in enclosures, show them to local people, like this is what's in your backyard, and I can kind of educate them on that, which was really cool. Thousands of people saw these different animals, and I would usually let people touch the reptiles, make sure if it's a kid they have like people watching and being careful with the animals, which Gobi was never handled, and then I brought him to every show and he was always amazing with kids or adults and whoever for just all day. He would not care at all. And there was one kid at one of the shows that was like, can I touch a toad? So I was like, yeah, you can touch a toad, I guess. So she touched the toad and then she was on her way. That was the only time the toad was touched, and I realized that she came back from a hike at the event because it was a festival with different stuff going on, and I don't know if she had maybe some bug spray on, or maybe she touched something in the wild, or maybe that wasn't even the issue at all. But after that expo, some of the toads just started looking really bad, and then almost immediately, before I could do anything, 5 of them were just dead. But Betty was perfectly fine. She was the strong one. So that was unfortunate. I was, much more distraught over this at the time, but at this point I've accepted it, I guess, even though it still really angers me, because I could have 6 really amazing toads still, which I had them for years. So it was disappointing, but that was the toad situation. So I got all 6 of these from the same area that I found Shadow, same like within a 5-minute radius or so. I would basically go like night cruising or whatever it's called, just basically slowly drive up and down roads with your headlights on in like the summers and springs when it's raining, and I would find tons and tons of toads every summer. Hey, I'm Alex Green, and I just got back from some night cruising. It's the second time we did this, and we found quite a few things. So it was, I'm sure there were hundreds. I would just fill buckets of them and then take them to more protected areas or safer areas. And I ended up keeping a few because I wanted to breed them, which I never really got to. But Betty was one of those. And I guess I got lucky and kept a pretty healthy one, and she's done amazing for many years now. And nobody's allowed to touch my toads anymore. And then there's Franklin, my red ear slider, who is right here. I have to take him out when I'm filming because he's way too loud on his basking spot. Franklin is one that I've had for a few years now. Someone contacted me saying they had this turtle that they just didn't want anymore. He wasn't necessarily being neglected, but his care was pretty awful. He had 2 homes that he went in between. He had a baby pool, which I actually used for a bit. I used it for like a year or something. And he would stay in that in the summer outside. And then in all the cold months, so about 8 months out of the year, or maybe 6 or 7 months out of the year, he was in a 20-gallon, no basking, no lighting, no heating, nothing. It was just water. He just had to swim 24/7, and he was 10 years old when I got him. So for 10 years, he lived in basically a 20-gallon with no basking. And somehow he really does not look that bad. We've seen way worse turtles that have not nearly been neglected as much as he was. Luckily, he made it through. He does have metabolic bone disease. He had a ton of shell rot, which I treated, and it worked great, which I did a video on that if you want to see treating shell rot. And then he's gone through a ton. I have a lot of videos on Franklin that you can check out. And he's now like 12 or 13, I guess 12 years old now. And thankfully, his metabolic bone disease was not bad enough to crush any organs or cause any pain. It is lumpy, but that's way better than I would have expected from this turtle. So he was kind of one of my other rehome / rescue. It wasn't really a rescue because the person surrendered it, but it was still rehomed in pretty bad condition. Then there is Smokey, one of my other ball pythons. He was the first animal that was ever given to me by an actual subscriber of the channel, which was kind of exciting. Somebody had watched the videos. They had, I think, a tortoise, and then they were like, we kind of want a snake. Well, the kid did at least, and then his mom kind of had a fear of snakes, but they went ahead and got one anyway. And it turns out she couldn't get over the fear, and the kid didn't seem very hyped about the snake. It wasn't great, but they really cared about the animal. He was cared about, but not cared for. Actually, for some reason, this live stream did super well. I have a live stream just pulling the stuck shed off of him. He was living on Aspen. I know a lot of people recommend Aspen and needs like a humidity box, which I think is super weird for ball pythons, but okay, I guess. But I got him onto the right substrate in a nicer enclosure, and he was really easy to fix. So Smokey, he was a pretty nice morph too. He's a yellow belly Mojave, nothing super high end, but not exactly a normal. And they just had him for a few months, and they were like, yeah, we can't do it. So I was happy to take him, and he was my first animal rehomed from a subscriber. Smokey's also kind of an example of why we started Emerald Scales with taking animals in, because once that happened, we just kept getting more that were like, hey, can I give this to you? Can I give that? And we were like, okay, we need to work out a business around this. And so we started Emerald Scales. So if we had started a year earlier, then Smokey probably would have been on the site and sold as well. But now that happens all the time. So it's really cool that kind of helped spawn it. Because there were some others, like the spider ball python, which was later, like a year later. I've had him for a good little bit. He was technically given to Emerald Scales, but although we could have rehomed it through the site like for free and be like, rehome, don't breed it, we don't want to associate with the morph at all on the site, so I just figured, yeah, I'd keep it. And then Ethan actually did the same with a spinner blast, or just spinner, something, which also has spider in it. So we each got our lovely spider now with its own issues. Thankfully, the spider has been doing as well as it can do. He's bitten himself, I think, 4 times now while eating, and we've done a lot to avoid it, and it's extremely hard to avoid. Maybe I'll go more in detail to this at some point, but basically no matter how hard we try, he always has issues. Still nothing that warrants euthanasia or anything. He's growing really well, but he's been doing much better now, and he was another one of the animals that was just rehomed by a subscriber. And then there's Harriet and the snapping turtle, which for some reason I've had the snapper for years and I still haven't named it. Harriet and the snapper are the 2 final wild-caught animals. I'll start with Harriet. She's an eastern box turtle. And so there was this crazy year at the old neighborhood when there were just tons. I've never seen so many turtles before. I ended up rehoming dozens and dozens of turtles just that one summer within like a month. They were just hatching everywhere. And there were so many spotted turtles, eastern box turtles, snapping turtles, river cooters, painted turtles, all sorts of crazy things. And just box turtles alone, there were so many of them. Thankfully, I find a lot of super healthy adults. I never would have taken an adult healthy box turtle. As one, they are declining in numbers, and like an adult box turtle can really help keep those numbers steady with just how many eggs it can produce each year. So I decided to keep one of the eastern boxes along with one of the juvenile snappers. They had both hatched that year, and I was personally comfortable doing it. Of course, there's gonna be a lot of opinions on that, especially with turtles. And yes, a lot of people threaten to call the police. Whenever I do something they don't like, they're like, well, you have illegal animals, so I'm gonna call the police. And then I give them the phone number to my local police, and then they never call them. Because it's perfectly legal, I am within legal limits, regardless of what your opinion is on it. But Harriet's been doing wonderfully, and if I have to pick a favorite in the room, it might be Harriet. She's up there. And then the snapping turtle, kind of same deal. That one's growing wonderfully, but doing perfect. It's doubled in size, maybe tripled, which Harriet's also grown a ton, which is just crazy because she's still super small, but she started out at just a couple grams, and now she's really getting up there. And then the snapper, he's literally just still in a 10-gallon, but he's such a small animal, and he does so little. So although he'll be upgraded probably soon, he just stays underwater 24/7, comes up for food and air, obviously. And then there's Potato, one of the most famous frogs on the channel, I guess, because he is featured on the merchandise, which is still available at GoHerpingShop.com. Potato was kind of a birthday present to me from Ethan, I guess a little over a year ago. And this was a little while after my Pacman frog had died, who died in November 2017. I had gotten Yoshi the Pacman frog off Craigslist, and when I went to pick Yoshi up, I was actually going to get him and his sibling, but his sibling died while I was on the way to get them. They texted me while I was coming and they were like, yeah, one of them died. So I was like, okay, I'll still take the other one, I guess. And then he died like a couple months later. Turns out I thought this was like super unfortunate and rare. I was like, I did something wrong. But then as soon as I made a post about it, I got swarmed with dozens of people that said the exact same thing happened to them, where Pacman frogs just drop dead all the time. But either way, although I was kind of discouraged after that, Ethan got Potato, the chubby frog, or the Asian painted something. I don't know. I should really know their names, but I just like their common names, like chubby frog. And he's done lovely. It was very weird because when I first got him, he would only eat superworms, and I'm getting off topic. This isn't related to where I got him, but he would only eat superworms for months and months, and finally, the past like 6 months, he's expanded his palate and he eats more than just superworms. So luckily he did fine on the worms, but now he's on all sorts of things, including on a shirt. And then there is Bonnabelle, the infamous savannah monitor. Bonnabelle is an animal from Craigslist that I paid $20 for. She came with this massive, ugly enclosure. It was awful. There were tons of spiders in it because it was in a garage. It was awful. So Bonnabelle had been through multiple homes, and I was her third home and hopefully her final. So I won't go into detail on her because she has so many videos. But yeah, she was from Craigslist. I always wanted a savannah monitor, but I didn't want to support the imported trade because they're all just mass imported in horrible care, in a horrible state. They're usually pretty much all unhealthy. They just die left and right because people don't know what they're doing, and they're all just these little tiny ones that are infected with parasites and all these issues, and then sold for like $20 a pop at reptile shows. So I didn't want to buy from there, so I jumped on the opportunity to get one off of Craigslist, and then we have this cow now. And then there is Wooby Woo, the axolotl. This was shipped from Illinois from my friend Amber. It was, I guess I didn't pay for it. I guess it was kind of also a birthday present. So, I mean, like, if you want to get an animal for your birthday, just make sure you're prepared. But yeah, basically she was captive bred. This little teeny tiny baby, I got to see pictures of her grow from the moment she was pretty much from the moment she was born, and then watched her development as she got to a size that was shippable, and then she was sent to me, and I've got to see her grow way more to where she is now. So it's crazy how much she's changed, but it's one of the coolest animal transformations that I've got to see. Then there is my second leopard gecko, who still does not have a name, and I got her technically from Emerald Scales, but Emerald Scales got it from a subscriber that had to give us some animals. He gave us a ball python and that leopard gecko. I believe she's technically just a normal. Originally, both of these animals were from Petco, so the person bought it from Petco. They had him for a bit, and they had to rehome, gave him to Emerald Scales. I bought it from Emerald Scales because we actually pay full price for the animals from Emerald Scales to make sure that we don't just like take everything for free, because then the business would fail. But there's something called carrot tail. I don't know if that's a technical morph for anything or if it's just a variation, but she had that beautiful tail that I just could not pass up, and she was a very friendly leopard gecko. We've had so many geckos, and I've just adored the terrestrial geckos, so I had to do it, and I got her, which, yes, that is their enclosure, and I still haven't done a video on it. It's coming soon. That's why the frame is weird sometimes, because I don't want to show the entire thing yet, so it's coming. But yeah, I finally have 2 leopard geckos, so I'm a bit more fulfilled in that area. Then there is the carpet python, which we actually have 2 of. I still haven't named mine. There's one at my house and one at Ethan's house. Technically speaking, these also belong to Emerald Scales, which people get confused when I say that. They're like, but you are Emerald Scales. The technicalities behind some of the animals of who owns it is weird, like just for the legal purposes of it, but that doesn't change anything. We care for all the Emerald Scales animals the exact same way we would care for our own. But they are permanent ones because we were hoping to breed them last year, which kind of failed because we got them too far into the breeding season. We also got these off Craigslist. We actually got a baby carpet python off Craigslist, which we eventually ended up selling. And then the same guy listed the adults that he had been breeding. So we got the adults. We were considering selling them, but they were just too cool to pass up and try with our own project. So like I said, we were too far into the season for it to be successful, but we hope to maybe do it this year. And they're just so cool because I love the larger snakes. And carpets are definitely not a large snake by any means. Compared to like a sand boa, they're pretty big. I don't know, I love that size where they're like heavy and like, but still really easy to work with. They're not large, they're like medium. I don't know, they're just cool snakes, okay? Speaking of slightly larger snakes, there is Rosie, my boa constrictor. She was surrendered by my own school. I actually got her, a lot of people don't know, I got her I think 3 days before her euthanasia date. She was living in this enclosure for 21 years in a classroom. Now the classroom is, I went to the school, I can tell you how awful it was. But the classroom was also horrible. It looked so old in there, and it turns out the enclosure was put in the classroom before the classroom was finished. I know this because in order to get the enclosure out, they had to take the windows off the building because it was built before the building was built, and the building was being torn down. So I mean, nobody at the school cared about the animal. Nobody at the school cared about anything, especially not this animal. And they weren't even going to take her out to euthanize her. They were going to call a vet in to euthanize her inside the enclosure. Beautiful 21-year-old animal that was horribly neglected by a horrible school. Awful dietary stuff going on, horrid enclosure, disgusting inside, almost as disgusting as the school. So they were like, can you take her? And I was like, sure, I need to prepare, but they were like, no, we're gonna euthanize her in like a couple days. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll come now. So I went. She lived in a plastic tub that she could barely even fit in for a week because I wasn't prepared at all. I got her like the same day I was told about her. I didn't even know she existed, even though I went to that school. Cool, I got her. She was super angry, super defensive, had never been touched in literal decades, longer than I've been alive, but now she is probably the coolest animal that I get to own. Which she is. She used to be in frame, I think, but she's no longer in this room because this room's full. I've expanded to a second room, and she's in my bedroom now. But I don't have a bed, so I guess my room. And Rosie is her original name. I should have changed it, but I was too lazy. Then there is Stan, short for Grunkle Stan. A lot of the animals in here are named after cartoons. Stan is the beardy that a lot of people think are dead. I don't know why you think it's dead. He's right there. He's not dead. He was also given to us by a subscriber. He was 10 years old, so now I guess he's like 10 and a half years old. He's still 10 years old. He's actually where I got that bag of calci sand from for that video. Because he was living on calci sand. His conditions were not great. They were some of the worst we've seen for a bearded dragon. The owners were aware of this, but not until very late into his life, so there was really not much they could do at that point. But he's been through a lot, and you can see content on him. Stan's still doing really well. He's gone through some issues, which we'll probably cover at some point, but for a 10-year-old dragon that's been cared for horribly, he's doing pretty good, and it just shows how hardy these animals are. And now it's unclear if he's going to be rehomed or if he's permanent here, because he is around a lot of animals, but he's gotten quite used to it, and he no longer bobs at everything, so that's great to see. Except when I was recording the video of him, he bobbed at Nepter, the vacuum. But now he can be in the same room as the animals without actually being stressed, unless he directly sees them. So we have dividers in between the animals now. And then finally, my own bearded dragon, Neddy, which I won't go into detail because I just did a video on him about why I refused to get a bearded dragon and then why I finally got one. But Neddy is another Craigslist animal. Again, for Emerald Scales. We were gonna sell it, but then I got it from Emerald Scales. He was the one that I had when my car ran out of battery thanks to a charger not working, and we had to get towed 3 hours away from home, and that was one of my fun adventures, which there's a vlog of that. And that's where Neddy's from. He was from Craigslist. The owners were good. He's in good condition, but he still has some issues, like he came from a crazy smoker home. Luckily, he does not show any signs of that though. So Neddy is doing well. Obviously, there's many other animals in the room that are going to be eventually rehomed, but I just wanted to cover my own personal animals and where I got each one. So that is where I got my approximately 20 animals, and it kind of spawned a whole thing. It's thanks to those subscribers that started giving them up to me and Ethan, and then we realized we do not have space for all these, so that's why we started Emerald Scales, and you can check that out at emeraldscales.com. Site's kind of empty as always because stuff sells out very quickly, which I really appreciate, but I wish we could keep more animals on the site, but we're getting there. We're expanding. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions about any of the animals. This was fun to do. Kind of a nice little run through of everyone that's hanging out in the room. So that's it. I'm Alex, and thanks for watching.